Why did I start with that? Because life is always full of choices, isn't it? You had to make some choices just then, didn't you? Have you ever noticed in life that you're never stationary? That you're always moving forward. And your day is always filled with making choices. There's no exception to making choices. In fact, when you don't make a choice, you have made a choice. Have you realized that? When you don't do anything, that's a choice. And because of the way life is, we'll always find ourselves having to choose. And how we choose is based on what we believe. And what we believe determines how we behave. And so here, if you open your Bibles to the book of Matthew, and I want you to turn to the 7th chapter. Matthew, the 7th chapter. We're going to look at verses 13 and 14. Excuse me. Matthew, the 7th chapter, verses 13 and 14. And there we find these words. Enter through the narrow gate. For wide is the gate, and broad is the road that leads to destruction. Listen to this. And many enter through it. But small is the gate, and narrow is the road that leads to life, and few find it. Oftentimes when we see this passage, we think about a person standing at a crossroads, don't you? And what I want to talk about is the decision all people have to make. But here's something I want us to take a look in making that decision. That picture of us always standing at a crossroads is really a false picture. Because when you read the text, it says at the very beginning, Jesus is given a command. He says, enter through the narrow gate. That's a command. In other words, he's saying that all of us are standing at the gate that is wide and broad. How do I know that there's only one gate you're standing at? Because when you look at verse 14, it says the narrow gate, few find it. So if you have to find it, it's not there for you to choose. Are you with me? So we're all standing at the broad and wide gate. And he's at the very end of his Sermon on the Mount, after he's laid out all his ethical and theological principles on why we need to follow him. Why you need to make that decision today. This is a new year. Last year, doesn't matter who or what you follow. But right now, you have a chance to start the year off right. But he gives you a command. But notice now, anytime God gives you a command, you still have a choice. You have a choice. He says, now, look at the decision. He says, now, there's two ways, there's two gates, and there's two outcomes. But there's only one choice. You can't make two choices. You can only make one choice. And whatever choice you make decides your fate. Look what it says now. Look what it says. It says, enter through the narrow gate. For wide is the gate. Now, that word wide means spacious. It means there's plenty of room. It means that a lot of people are on that way. A lot of thoughts can travel down that road. A lot of philosophies can travel down that road. A lot of different belief systems can travel down that road. A lot of different sensual desires can travel down that road. It is wide. In fact, we live in a culture that promotes a wide road. It's called tolerance. Right? That means you should tolerate a lot of things. It's hard to be a Christian and really walk where we're going to talk about later, the narrow road, because our society pushes us to treat everyone on this broad road as though we can all get along and go the same way. Broad is the road, right? Broad is the gate. No, wide is the gate. Broad is the road. What's that song? On Broadway. Isn't there a song about Broadway? With the lights, it talks about some lights and all of that. Isn't that right, Doug? See, that man knows his music, doesn't he? Mm-hmm. How does it go? Somebody know it? About the Broadway?
They say to me, I'm like so bright on Broadway.
Yeah, on Broadway. Now listen to, listen. Now listen. Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah. We better take this off air. We better do that at 11:15. You better do. But listen now. Listen. See, we laugh about the Broadway, but the Broadway is the destination that most people are on. Look, the direction that most people are going is the Broadway. Look what it says. It says, wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction. And what does it say? How many people are going to enter there? Many people are going to enter there. It says, yeah, this is a highly traveled road. And a lot of stuff is going down that road, and everybody is saying it's okay to do your thing on the broad road. In fact, the road is so broad and so wide that a drunk person can stagger on it and still make his way in. A liar or a thief can travel on that road. A person who's deceptive can travel along that road and still make it in. It says many will enter it. That's the direction that most people are going. Can I talk plain? Even in church, there are a lot of us that are still on that broad road and that's going through that wide gate. Why? Because we don't want to exclude anyone, because we feel that we have to go the same way that everybody is going. I remember when I was a young boy, my mother used to say, if you want to know the right way to go, look where everybody else is going and go in the opposite direction. But for too many of us, we want to follow the crowd. This is the road that follows the crowd. This is the direction that our children are going. The media drives them in that way. This is the direction that we promote that they go. We want to buy them things so that they can look like their peers, so they can go to the place their peers can go, so they can have the things that their peers have, because we don't want them to be looked upon as odd or different. We're setting them up for failure. We're putting them on the broad road. We're making it easy for them. The direction. Think about your own life. What direction are you going? It's 2018. Are you going to stay on that road? We don't like to look at and examine the road that we're on. But Jesus gave all of these ethical and theological positions in that seventh, starting at the 5th chapter. He said that, if you just open your Bibles to Matthew, the 5th chapter. Look what it says now at the very beginning. He says, now when he saw the crowd, he went up on a mountainside and sat down with his disciples came to him, and he began to teach. Jesus begins to tell what it is like to be a child of God. And the problem is that when we start looking at these, some people think that these are just high philosophical principles. But no, Jesus is saying that this is what it means to be a child of God. Now, he's not saying that you can work your way in. He's saying that you have to accept him and his teaching, and that you're going to submit and commit your life to him. And when you do, he can give you the power to walk with him and to live these out. We can't do these on our own. You don't have the power, nor the strength, nor the ability, or the capabilities, or the facilities to be able to do it, because there's just so much stuff pulling on your head. Do you know how many voices you got in your head? Yeah. You got lots of voices, lots of people, lots of things telling you what you ought to do, what's right, and which way you ought to go, don't you? When you get ready to make a decision, do you consult a few people? Sure you do, because you're looking for what kind of answer? Hopefully the right answer, right? You want to make certain you're making the right decision. Even something, and it's not simple, but something just as buying a house. Do we need to involve God in that? You say that, but you just say, hey, I want a house. How about buying a car? How about a mate? How about how you spend your money? Yeah. So he's saying here now that the majority of us are going in the wrong direction. Now, look, the sad part about this, look at the consequences for going in the wrong direction. Look what he said it leads to. It leads to destruction. Now, that word for destruction that Jesus is using, it means eternal punishment. Now here's another sad part about this broad road, and because when you're traveling along and a lot of people are going along and you're having such a good time, you don't think about the end. Do you? When the party is going, you don't think about the party going to stop till the lights come on, right? Huh? Even if they say last call for alcohol, yes, we're going to have our last call at 3 o'clock. All right. We're going to get filled with the Spirit. But look now, he says it leads to destruction. So what is he saying? He's saying the journey, what's most important, the journey or the end of the journey? What's most important? Huh? How the journey ends is more important than the ride or the joy ride. You see, when you're on a journey in life, it's more important how it's going to end than the ride itself. Say ouch. Yeah, because sometimes if you're just having such a good time and life is just going really great and things are just happening like you want, but if you're not following the Lord, you could be on a journey that's going to end in what? Destruction. It disturbs me when the text says that many will enter in that way. Do you know anybody heading on that road? Raise your hand. We should. Yeah, you should have some of those kind of friends. If you don't have some friends on that kind of road, you may be that friend. That folks. Yeah, if you don't have any unsaved friends, but you got friends, you may be their unsaved friend. Yeah. You ever thought of that? We should. Look what it says. It says many. They could be in your home. They could be on your job. They could be your neighbor. They could be your children. Is this what we want for them in 2018? And when he says ends in destruction, you don't know when that's coming. Didn't we learn last week that we don't know what's going to happen even the rest of today? Right? So would we want that for our families, our friends? Would you even want that for your enemies? Don't answer that, you in church. Yeah. Some of you want them to go to that because you even tell them to go there. Don't you? Yeah. You if they push the right, but in your mind, where Jesus says even what's in your mind, you're going to have to give an account for. Yeah. But walk with me. Look what it says. But small is the gate, and narrow is the road. What is he saying? The destination, he's going to tell us that the destination that few people will find. Look at the destination that few people will find. He says, narrow is the gate. No, small is the gate and narrow is the road. Now, that word road and that narrow and wide, Jesus was talking to them, and he's probably, he's on top of a mountain, and I can imagine him looking down and seeing some of the Roman roads. And those Roman roads were about, the public roads were about 25 to 27 feet wide, probably like the roads we travel up and down with our cars. And they were public roads. When you're on a public road, you pay taxes, right? So who gets to go on them? Everybody, right? But when he says narrow is the road, he's probably now thinking about a private road. Y'all walking with me here? And on a private road, you can't go on that unless you get an invitation. Are y'all walking with me here? And so when you go back to the very beginning of verse 13, he gives the invitation. He says, enter the narrow gate. He says, I'm giving you the invitation to enter the narrow gate. And he says, you can only come through this narrow gate by invitation, but he's giving it to everybody. So everybody gets the invitation. But the question is, are you going to accept the invitation? See, if somebody lives in a gated community, let me talk to you now. If you live in a gated community, you can't get in unless somebody gives you the code. You can push all day long. Are y'all walking with me here? He's saying now that this is an invitation from God to get the code to get in to the narrow gate. He said he's got a code for you. And it's JESUS. Are you looking here now? He's saying that this is the only combination that can open the gate. He says it in John 14. He said, Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the light. He says, life, no one comes to the Father except you got to have the code to get into the narrow gate. And the beautiful thing, see, in destruction, it says that it ends. Isn't that what it says? He says that the broad and wide way ends, it leads to what? Destruction. But look what he says about the narrow and the small way. He says it what? Leads to life. That word is Zoe. It means in the full life, an abundant life. It does not end. This road has no ending. You enter into a place where there is life and life eternal. But it is narrow. You won't find a lot of people on it. The word narrow also means rough. It is not an easy road. He's not saying that it's hard to become a Christian. No, it's not hard to become one, but it's harder to follow these principles because there's so many distractions and attractions to take your mind away from what God is calling us to do. And he's saying in 2018 that you got to find it. That means that word find means you got to search for it, that you're going to be yearning for it, that you got to be studying for it, that you got to be aiming for it, that you got to want it, you got to desire, because when those things are coming into your mind and it's telling you something that's going to hold you, and he's saying that the only thing that can hold you is you got to go to that narrow gate and punch in the right code. You got to punch in JESUS, and he said that I'll come to you. Then he says he's knocking on the door, and he says, open up and let me in. Let me in. That's what he's saying. What is he saying? He's saying the right way. The right way is which way? It's not the popular way. Did you hear that? The right way is definitely not the popular way. We have a problem in not being popular. Don't you want everybody to like you? Let's be honest. Don't you want people to be your friend and be kind to you? Yeah. Well, you can have that, but you can't do that at the sacrifice of whose you are. We're called to, when you read in that chapter, it says we're called to be the salt of the earth. We're called to be the light of the world. And so people are looking for the right way to go. And if we're sending mixed messages, we're going to confuse some folks. But Jesus tells us here that he is the way, the truth, and the life. That we're to pattern our lives after his. Why? Because he went to the cross for you and 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 for me. That's what he did. And he says, I'm going to pay your sin debt so that you can always have the code. So that any time that you're in trouble in life, that all you got to do is call on him. All you have to do is say, Jesus, help me right now. You don't have to have any theological degree. You don't have to know all the scriptures in the Bible. But no, all you have to know is that God sent his son into the world, that he lived, that he died, that he rose from the dead. And guess what? He's coming back again. He's going to be looking for those of us who have entered through the narrow and small way, you see. And he's going to see us coming down the road. He's going to say, life hadn't been easy for you on this journey. He said, but the place where you're going, he said, in the place that you're going to end up in a place where there'll be no more sickness. You're going to end up in a place where there's going to be no more dying. You're going to end up in a place where the wicked will cease from troubling. You're going to end up in a place where the weary shall be at rest. He said, so travel on the road. Make the right decision while you still have time. You notice that there are two possibilities, but there's only one choice. Every time you make a decision, you're faced with just two possibilities. Not 3, not 4, not 5. And we don't like that in the world we live in. You can go to the grocery store. If they only had 2 kinds of potato chips, you say, is that all you got? Plain and barbecue? You would get upset because our world gives us so many choices. If you walked in the store and they only had 2 or something, you're upset because you didn't get more choices. But the Bible is clear. Look at it. There are not thousands of choices. Now, on the road to destruction, there are many exits. There are many different roads or side roads, but they all lead to the same place. When you're on a dead-end road, it doesn't matter which exit you take. It's coming to an end. Look at it right there. It leads to destruction. So in 2008, I don't want you to make the wrong decision. I want you to choose the right way. And he says now, you have to find it. Those cards that I gave you, you had a decision to make. Whether you're going to sign up to come to a growth group. Sure, that means you got to give up something. See, here's the problem with most of us in our Christian faith. We want Christianity to be an add-on. We don't want to give up something. And the sad part is, what we want to keep isn't worth as much as what we'll get. It's a sacrifice to come on a Wednesday evening or Wednesday afternoon or get up early and come to a Sunday morning class. And it's a sacrifice. But how many of you want to find it? Don't lie to. How many of you really want to find it? You're not going to find it with what the world has to offer. You got to make a sacrifice. You got to give up something. If you like watching TV, if you got 10 shows, watch 9. Sacrifice 1. No, I'm serious. Watch 9. If you love to shop all day on Saturday, give up one Saturday. Make a sacrifice. Because if you don't make a sacrifice now, the text says, if you stay on that wide and broad road, it's going to end. It will end. And that ending will be destruction. Is that what you want for you? Your family? Your friends? I think not.